I know I'm a bad guy, and I'm hearing that, you know, the government and having civil discourse and disagreement is healthy, because there are a lot of different points of view in our city, as what I'm hearing on our council. And, you know.
Excuse me, one thing. If you agree to everything all the way through the process and then change your mind when it's on TV, that's not discourse.
He didn't interrupt. It's okay. Councilman Roetter, this is your time.
Have you ever changed your mind on anything?
Yeah, I like you to start with.
Hey,
That's the point number one. And I know that, and there's a lot of things I could probably talk about, but I'll just highlight a few things. The comp plan, I know, was a long, arduous process. What stuck in my mind that really I thought was, I liked the idea, was, well, we need a price point, because prices are going crazy. And it sounded really good, but in my gut, something was wrong with that. And I didn't know what it was until I started talking to people and hearing people, and Ed started this Facebook page, and I started reading what people were saying and the issues he brought up, and I started thinking about it. And so where I came up with is that and the comp plan says that the estimate in 20 years will be 35,000 people. And if that is a guide to try to accommodate this growth, well, you have to project something. So there is a plan to try to accommodate a vast amount of people, way more than we've ever had, and over doubling it. So, you know, the comp plan was trying to accomplish accommodating, and correct me if I'm wrong, or was it only to accommodate 5,000 more people? Or was it to try to accommodate 35,000 total? I took it as, when I looked at the graph, that the estimate in 20 years was going to be in that 35,000 range. And I also looked at the slope, you know, analyzing the slope between different time periods, and the acceleration of that thing was incredible. I'm talking about the growth rate. Again, I welcome civil discourse. I think that this is the healthiest thing that we as a government entity can do. Not everybody thinks the same. And so I appreciate what my fellow council members, their position. But I have a real basic question. It is, how are we going to pay for this? How are we going to pay for the capital improvement plan that we have is $50–60 million, and we are crowded now with traffic. So if we go and then project this out in the future without the funding mechanism, and I sat down with a local owner of one of the bigger real estate firms this week, and I asked him the same question. I said, I need to know from people smarter than me, how do we fix this problem? He didn't have an answer. I sat down with Melissa for 2 hours. I asked her that question. And she said, and tell me if I'm wrong, that really wasn't my job to look at how we're going to fund it. Is that true?
I asked you what your idea was for funding it, since you're a councilman. I mean,
right, but I had asked, we could
completely
disagree on a few points, but I was looking for ideas how we fund this. And then eventually she did respond and said, well, it's the responsibility of the people to pay for that. And I'm going, wait a minute. We as citizens, are we expected to pay for all this new growth so new people can be packed in here? If that's what my fellow council members want.
No, it isn't.
Then who's gonna pay for it? That's no good business plan will go out in the future, do something that will put them further in the hole. How are we gonna pay for this? We had our sheriff, and I like Bob Norris, and we were all here that we probably heard, he wants 1.8 million. You know, from us, because I asked for the number. All right, so now how are we going to get that money? Is he providing the adequate service to Hayden now? Maybe not, because he needs 1.8 million. Well, if we can't afford that net, what we're paying now, and we can increase it 29,000, how can we afford 1.8? Again, where do we set our sights on growth? And I want to be clear in this, I'm not about shutting it down, we can't. My concern is where it's taking us, because the traffic's gonna get worse, the crime's gonna get worse, and who's gonna pay for it? We don't have an ability to, can someone on council, and I'll continue on with these other points, can someone answer that question?
Please continue on.
Do you want me to at least comment from a staff level, what we're trying to do? I think you're right, when you look out a long ways, some of those numbers, you know, when you hear a $55 million number, some of those numbers are out for a long distance. I think from a staff perspective, we're trying to tackle those problems, and so I think it's important, you know, that the public knows that we're not just we don't have blinders on. We've put together and paid for in the middle of plans for the 5 top intersections. And how do we pay for that? Well, we're hoping we can use some of the federal money. We're hoping we can use, you know, the 3.1 million that we're getting. We're hoping that we can use some of the state extra funds that they have. We've collected 2.7 million in impact fee money to be used. And so we have enough to do some of those intersections. We're studying Honeysuckle and Hayden. And so I don't want, I guess from my perspective is, we're trying to address, you know, the priority issues and come up with ways to fund. We go for grants, we go for everything we can to try to make it work. And so on the sewer side, we have a plan. It's not the you know, as we expand the system, the existing citizens will not pay to expand the system. That comes from cap fees and other things. And so we have a plan that we've worked on with a new code section to pay for sewer. Roads are a struggle in many towns, but from our perspective, we're not giving up on that. We're trying to do the best we can, and we've got millions of dollars to work with on these projects and to try to tackle the Honeysuckle and Ramsey's, the Honeysuckle and 4th Street, and redo those intersections and continue to go after money. So I don't want the public to get the impression that we're not doing anything. Part of what we were doing was to plan for this, and so if we have a plan and we have priority, we can start working on those. Do we have enough money to pay for all the projects? No. So I guess that's hopefully maybe the best answer we have right now. I think the alternative, say with police, if we weren't to have any growth at all today, what he's telling us is our current shortfall is $1.2 to $1.8 million. If we don't do anything, we have a responsibility. They're saying, these are the services we're providing, you need to do something. And so we could say no and then not have those services, I guess, but we're on a staff level trying to tackle these the best we can, and so there's not no answer. It's just not. We're trying to move forward. Sometimes a little bit to get the money to do these projects that we prioritize, and maybe that's the best answer that cities have that we can do. And somehow we've made it through, you know, and there's a number from 1970, we had 14,000 people come to the city from 1970, and I think the city of Hayden got behind in infrastructure, and we've made it through that period of time. And I think we're gonna increase impact fees, we're doing that so that we're getting enough there. Our cap fees are as high as the courts will allow us. Anyways, I'm going on too long, but that's.
So if I'm